meeting, and we've got a reasonably full agenda, so thank you just to take the time to be as concise as you can as you're making your comments. Just make note that there's one or two amendments. No surprises, Rachel's organised, giving me advice, etc. So thank you for that. But anyway, let's start. I'll ask John Busey to read out here, please.
We ask that through council discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the Far North District with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively.
Amen. Thank you very much. Right, the first thing I need to just, we'll just quickly go through apologies. I think we've got a full council in, so no apologies. Any declarations of interest other than them all? Thank you. We have no deputations. Mural announcements. The first thing is that I just need to announce that amongst our staff we've had 3 birthdays recently. Aisha, Dolly and Kat. Are we singing happy birthday? I got told by Kelly that I wasn't allowed to sing happy birthday because it's recorded permanently and they can't get it off. I wanted her to explain what was wrong with my singing, but anyway, she wouldn't do that either. But happy birthday to those.
We're singing the break.
We're singing the break. Well, we're right. Okay. We'll do that. The second thing is that I have. Sorry. The second thing is I have from Mural Announcements Rangitoto Reserve, which is a reserve at Hihi, which some of you will know of. We've been asked if it's possible by the residents for us to transfer that. It's council ownership at the moment, council reserve. It's not accessible. It's one of those reserves that need to be looked at. They've asked if we could transfer it into DOC. So I just want people to know that we're working on doing that with the Rangitoto Reserve. I'm not quite sure what steps we need to take to achieve that, but it seems to me sensible. Cheryl Bainbridge, particularly from the community board, has been sort of giving firm comments, is perhaps the best way to put it. So that's the first thing. The second thing I just want to comment is on the Duffus Trust in Russell. And we need to be working on that. Sean, we've had an approach from the people of the Duffus Trust. There's quite a history. It goes back many, many years, but they're looking for support from council, so we're also working on that. Working party delegations is the third item I have here, and I just want to make it clear that it's important that as we set up working parties that we ensure that we have the delegations right and so that everybody knows exactly what the expectations are, that we have terms of reference that they can refer to, and if there is any change at all from the working party or wherever to what's being put, it needs to come back to council to be signed off. It's not a thing that anyone can just make a decision on and change. So I just want to make that point on working parties. If we could just note that in the minutes, please. Manifesto update on disability issues. Kelly, do you want to make any comment on that at all?
Yeah. I would like to take the opportunity, Your Worship, as the representative on the Disability Action Group in this public forum to highlight to the public and colleagues and the staff that there's 2 key issues that the disability community are frustrated about, and that is members of the public parking in mobility parking spaces. And quite rightly, we do have a problem with enforcement, but many of the parking spaces are on private car parks such as supermarkets, so council can't enforce that. It's up to public responsibility to not park in those. But they also have a frustration about developers or people doing vehicle crossing projects or, drainage, anything anything that they have public access to that do not consider their needs, whether it be blind, whether it be, with a mobility walker or a wheelchair. If everybody can just always turn their mind to it and just have some awareness, that would be much appreciated. They're really grateful for the staff turnout at our meetings, and they're really impressed with the engineering standards that are coming up for draft consultation soon this year, and just looking forward, and I've raised this with my colleagues, we need to make sure that the level of service of renewals work captures those new engineering standards which take into account disability or mobility needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kelly. I know, Felicity, you're working on the procurement policy, and just you've got some notes. Do you want to make any comment to Council on that?
Thank you.
Briefly, but if you would.
Comedians don't write the policy, but I've raised concern about our delivery of our capital works program, particularly our travel ready. And we need to have a system where we highlight risks for lack of output, and procurement is one of those risks, and the timeframes and roadblocks that it can create, particularly for really low value, low risk procurement items. And I've raised that with our CE, so he's aware of the procurement matters that have been raised. We've got a procurement board which now consists of staff for a threshold over 100,000. My question is that threshold working right at the moment, or could we do other processes to ensure that we have outputs that meet our social procurement needs, but also address delivery to our community, which is what our community deserves.
Thank you. All right, I take it you'll keep us posted through your committee.
Yes, and it's working in with audit, risk and finance, which is where our procurement is within. So it's infrastructure is delivery, and audit financial risk is the risk element.
If you and Councillor Newsich can keep us posted on that, along with the Chief Executive, this is important. What we don't want is our system to be slowing down or interfering with the delivery of things. So thank you for that. Just note that there was an email came around from Caroline about professional development plans, and that you're doing that in March, I understand, talking with councillors. So I just note that. And is there anything you need to add at this stage, Caroline?
No, thank you, Your Worship. I'll be coming probably in April because I'll be road showing in March.
Okay, lovely.
We'll be in contact.
Good. I just raised it with councillors so you're aware of it. There's an issue raised, Sean, which I know you're dealing with local councillors with Pearson and the Kaikoui issue. I don't know that there's any more we need to know. Just know that that's being worked on at the moment. Yes. So you'll keep us informed on that.
Yes.
Finally, I just want to say to council, yesterday I had the great pleasure and privilege of attending the opening of the Kerikeri Men's Shed. And I've got to say, firstly, congratulations to them. What a wonderful asset, and the contribution they're making to our community, not just through Kerikeri, but actually around the district, is fabulous. But why I raise it is because we as council and the community board chairs actually took a decision to make a contribution to the Men's Shed 2 or 3 years ago, and the consequence of that is now developed where they are. So firstly, very good decision. But I raise it primarily because as a consequence of that contribution, and then the work, Sean, I want to just say the staff yesterday were complimented all over the place. And so I just want to say to all our staff, thank you all very much for the contribution you're all making to our community. The Kerikeri Men's Shed is just one example of many compliments. I, like all of us, I get the other side of the story from time to time, and probably as Mayor I get as much as anyone. But I've got to say that I'm also receiving significant positive comments, and I just want to applaud our staff, Sean, all of them. Thank them all very much for the dedication to the work they're doing. I know you haven't always got all the answers instantly, and you don't always get everything done we would like you to get done, but I do want to recognise the fact of the effort that's being put in by us collectively as an operational side, and thank you very much. I just want to recognise that. finally, I think I said finally the last one, but this is finally, just note that the Community Board Chair's report coming up, and that's an opportunity for the three of you, please, to make comments that you wish to bring to the Council's attention. Council's attention, anything that you have as we go through those reports, please. One of the things I probably haven't done enough and failed to do actually is ask you to make comment during the council meetings about things that are of importance to the community board. So this is now an opportunity for that to be done. So when we get to that, I would appreciate that very much. Oh, and I've just been told that an extraordinary meeting for council has been scheduled for the 1st of March to review. 3rd of March, I beg your pardon. What did I say? Oh, well, that's close enough. 3rd of March, we'll get notice of it after adoption of the long-term plan 21-31. So just so you're aware of that, please.
Sorry, where will that be held?
I assume it's in Kaiko. Yeah, I assume it's Kaiko.
Yeah, okay, no, that's cool. We would move.
Yes, so the extraordinary council meeting has been scheduled in the afternoon so that it doesn't clash with the community board meeting. I think it's scheduled from 3:30.
I intended to bring up some extra stuff to take away from 6 o'clock.
Well, you can. You'll just have to do it. You'll just have to be more fleet of foot. Okay, thank you very much. So that's the mayoral announcements. We'll go on to confirmation of the previous minutes. Also moved. Do I have a seconder, please?
Kelly?
Thank you, Kelly.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, certainly, ma'am.
Several weeks ago, we're just looking at the agenda before we go on to the confirmation of the minutes.
Yes.
Several weeks ago, you and I talked about the Cod Dam and its importance of putting it on the agenda. And the reason for that is it's 4 years this year that we moved the motion to accept that Cod Dam.
Right.
And it has cost the ratepayers thousands and thousands of dollars in regard legal fees, easements, etc. And then I got on to you again and I said to you, this is still on. You said you talked to him and finished and it's going to be on the agenda. And I wonder why it isn't on the agenda.
It's on the water agenda committee, the water committee agenda, not the council agenda at this stage.
So what's the water?
Infrastructure?
It's the one, no, we have a regular water committee, Kaitaia water meeting from time to time, and you attended, and it's one of the things.
No, that wasn't what I got from you, Mr. Ricardo.
Yeah, well,
You had to go on the
sorry
agenda because of the cost involved to the.
I'm sorry if you misunderstood, but that's where it will first be discussed and then it will come to council meeting.
The problem is that I met with the deputy chair of Nakamo Trust, the Māori Trust that owns that land in that area, and I told her that hopefully it'll be on the agenda, and she was quite pleased about it because she, as she said, you need to get out of here, and it's got personal. The whole thing's got really personal, and it's going to explode. So that's why I was hoping that it would be on this agenda.
Okay.
We have the Kaitaia water, the last one got cancelled just a week ago or so.
All right.
Anyway, carry on.
Thank you, Councillor Ravitch, for raising that issue, and we'll make sure that it's discussed and as necessary we'll bring it to the full council meeting as and when required. I think there's issues, Mr. Swanning Polder, that are happening as we go through, so thank you very much. Right, so confirmation of the minutes. So it's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments on the previous minutes? If not, on this motion, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no carry. Right, I'll ask you to turn to item 6.1, page 31.
Can you move your worship?
That was you, Rachel? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Scott. Move. Second, please. Thank you, Councillor Stefania. Any discussion, Rachel?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'd like to support the recommendation of the Community Board, noting the date of this recommendation. It's good to see that that process is being followed. I just wanted to note the point that the new equipment will not be upgrading the site to 5G, which I know was a concern at the time, and also wanted to highlight as a really great achievement of this process, the sixth point on page 32, the purpose of adding the radio unit to increase the capacity of the site so it can take more traffic, provide better calling quality and data speeds for more users. I'm sure you're all familiar with our Nothing But Net digital strategy that we adopted last year, a fantastic piece of work which is up for a Solvum Award at the moment. So that strategy identified that mobile coverage across the district is still poor and that the number one barrier to eliminating the digital divide is lack of digital infrastructure. By working with providers and communities to increase mobile coverage, we make good progress towards the strategic goals of our district. So I really wanted to highlight that while this is something that the community board have taken on and many may think is a small thing, it's a fantastic step in the right direction to our strategic outcomes. So really just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Tiffany, and then I'll take Chairman Ward.
Jeremy Carter. I just had a question on page 31 under the background. I applaud Bab Islands Whanganui Community Board for approving this subject to further consultation with hapu and is it adjoining? I don't know how to say that word. Adjoining landowners. The hapu, the response back was that the hapu advised Vodafone. The other concern was not with Vodafone, but rather it was around the land and that the matter has been sought in the Waitangi Tribunal claims process. But as far as the facility is concerned, there is not a problem. I just wanted some clarity on which hapu gave feedback. Was it Ngāti Kura, or it would help, I think, if our reports actually reflected that sort of information, and how their feedback was sought too. Was it an email to a marae trustee, or did they actually have a hui with them? Maybe just further clarification around that point would be good for myself, but also for those who are listening.
Thank you, Councillor Tiffany. Funnily enough, we actually had a discussion about specificity in some reports this morning, so I'll ask Chairman Ward and then Sean.
Seth Glenn or Kate comment.
Okay, well, after Belinda. Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, that was my concern on page 38. It wasn't so much the residents and neighbours that had already been involved in the communication, but the community board wanted their consultation and discussion with the local iwi hapu representatives, and I would also expect the board to be looking at that list and saying, well, who did they speak with and where is the person or the hapu that they communicated with, because it's actually not on page 38. It's just in this line, it just says marae read response, which isn't as far as I'm concerned from the board's perspective. Right. Just really echoing Moka's sentiments that we put that in there for a reason, so that we could be ensured that hapu had been approached and the person or the marae, we would like to see that. So,
Okay, can we have staff response, please?
Through the chair. Kay, would you like to comment on that aspect of it?
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's Kay here. Attached to this report are the consultation, there's a table of consultation persons. Can you hear me? And also the letter that went out along with the plan.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear me? My microphone is on.
Yep, thank you. We can hear you now, loud and clear.
Oh, okay, thank you. Attached to the report, I'm not sure, but there are attachments there which show the there's a table of the attached letter and plans that was sent to the addresses in the table, and also there is an email or there should have been an email attached with the local marae and the response that was given there. And they did quite a comprehensive consultation with the community and the school. I'm just trying to pull up the attachments myself.
So,
I don't know if that answers the questions or not.
Well, I don't, Glenn, it's not in the attachment's not in here, is it?
The email attachment.
I'm trying to pull it up and I can't see it myself.
I can through the chair. Can we take this on advice? We will have an answer for you. It's going to be probably trying to get it for you right now. We may even be able to bring it to you in a session if you like, your worship, but can we take some time to get that?
Well, all right, in which case then, if it's okay with everyone, we'll put this, we'll just put it, adjourn it, and come back to it.
Thank you very much.
Get that information, and if sure that you can get that information to us when you can, that'll be fine. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
And if please somebody remind me that I have to come back to that item. Thank you. Okay, can we go to 6.2, page 48? Get there.
And can I please declare a conflict of interest as a benefactor?
Okay, thank you. That's noted, if we would. And as a conflict of interest, you'll take no further part in this discussion. Thank you very much. Right, I will move. Do I have a seconder, please, for the resolution? Thank you, Councillor Clendon. The floor is open for anyone who may wish to discuss it. Are there no comments? If not, then I will put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you very much. We will go then to report page 53, and to do with the option report treated water supply regulations. And I just want to make this point that goes back to the point that Matty raised. Any councillor has a right, and Matty, in your case, if you had rung me a couple of days before, we could have addressed the thing. Rachel sent me an email saying that no surprises, she's going to raise an amendment to this. So what I will do is I'll move it, and can someone second it, please? Thank you, John. And then Rachel, the floor is yours to make your amendment, please.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you for saying.
So just a bit of background, the strategy committee have obviously seen this bylaw report and had in-depth conversations with staff on it, which was a really good debate. There were lots of points that came out that were outside of the scope of this paper, so I really just wanted to highlight to council as well as to the committee the ongoing work outside of the scope of this around water resilience, the papers that the strategy committee have recommended for council to receive, especially in terms of sustainable on-site water storage and the likes. I just want to draw everybody's attention to page 54, which highlights the requirement to adopt this bylaw prior to the 16th of October 2021 to avoid the revoking of the bylaw that is currently in place. In the interest of supporting a DMP culture, a date and promise culture in this organisation, and ensuring that governance is sending really clear direction. Also, enabling us to track that, I'd really like to move an amendment of C. Aisha, if I could get that on the screen, please. C, that council under section 155 of the Local Government Act 2002, this is point C, notes that in order to ensure the bylaw is not revoked, it will need to be finalised by council at the 25th of September council meeting. So I'd like to move that, please.
All right, that's an amendment.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there any discussion on that? I think the concept of us being very clear in our directions from the governance to the chief executive and staff is one that we should be looking to adopt all the time. So, Rachel, thank you for bringing it to our attention, and it's been moved and seconded. If there's no discussion, I'll put the amendment. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. It now becomes part of the motion, and so I'll now, unless there's any discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Okay, so that's A, B and C as part of that motion. Thank you all very much for that. And again, I just clarify. You all okay? Oh, goodness, I thought you were looking as though something right. Right, so we go to 6.4, page 53.
So that's the item that we're seeking.
Well, so, okay, right, so a big thank you. So the adoption of the long-term plan will be moved now. That's quite, now I understand what we're talking about. Yes, the problem is that we haven't had the response we need from the audit department to allow us to adopt it. So we're waiting for that to come back so we can have the extraordinary meeting, which we'll have after Mike Edmonds has finished his community board meeting as rapidly as possible. So thank you all.
Should probably go before lunch, John. Oh, sorry, just after lunch.
Just after.
Oh, sorry, when you do catering.
Yeah,
Just
no.
after lunch.
Okay, so we'll turn to page 65. Thank you, Aisha, birthday girl, for bringing it to my attention. And so we'll move to page 65. This is to do with amendment to rating delegations. And I'll so move. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Tiffany. Are there any, it's pretty straightforward, are there any discussions or points people wish to make?
I had a couple, Your Worship. I know that we are always discussing how we can ensure efficiencies in our processes here at Council. And I noted something which piqued my curiosity when I read this, not last night, well before last night. And that was that for the remission of rates on Māori on page 76, the manager for Te Hono was put down there as having delegations over that, but then it's crossed out. I do understand that that is because the Te Hono team processed those applications, therefore, or something like that, but I just hope that for clarity in this meeting, if we could get the reason why that manager, it's the only manager within this entire report who has been mentioned, but then it is crossed out, or I don't know if the crossed out is a mistake. And if there is a way or a reason why not that manager should have delegations for this to make things happen faster, I would like that crossed out to be reinstated, or if it is appropriate that it is crossed out, to leave it so. But I just wondered why that was the case.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Jamie to make comment. I've got to say, and this is a valid reason, it seems odd. When we first set Te Hono up, its very purpose was to give us advice on these very sorts of things. So thank you for raising it. Jamie, is there a reason why?
I don't have an answer to the question which Councillor Tiffany raises, but it's a great question to ask. I will ensure that we get an answer for you ASAP, i.e. today. That's okay, Councillor Tiffany.
So you're saying?
What I'm saying, Your Worship, is that I don't know the specific reason why the post was crossed out as it was. It's unusual for that to happen, which I think is why Councillor Tiffany is raising it. I think Janice is indicating that she might have an answer.
Councillor Tiffany is quite right, because the Te Hono team process, we need to authorise delegated officers to approve. Therefore, we keep the separation between the two processes.
So that's to ensure there's no conflict of interest
between the people making the recommendation and those actually accepting it and making it work.
Right.
Can I just make sure then that across those delegations there are no other conflicts or people who are processing and then actually approving?
No, we get them from the Te Hono team with a recommendation.
Is there any reason in the interests of efficiencies or making things process faster? I know, Your Worship, that we had a meeting over a Māori landowner who had applied for a remission, but because of the sheer number of applications and it did take longer. And why is we crossed? Is there a way that we could actually have better efficiencies by allowing that team or that manager to approve these?
Your Worship, I think I can answer that. And if I'm not across the detail, Janice will assist. Councillor Tiffany again is right to identify the process was very time consuming and was manual. We've now changed that. It is now e-oriented in as much as that we were able to speed things up significantly. Te Hono give advice the Chief Finance Officer has a look at it, and the General Manager, Corporate Services, which in normal circumstances is me, goes through that. We've now got it streamlined, through your worship, Janice. It's significantly quicker than it was before.
Okay. Councillor Usage and then Councillor Stratford. Oh, and then Councillor Clinton.
Just a question I have, in terms of the delegations, I noticed here, and I'll use this one as an example since we're on that same page, there are a list of officers there mentioned, and I was just wondering how internally you manage that when you've got delegations going to multiple people. That just seems to be a potential area of internal operational issues. So can someone comment?
Through your worship, we have a delegations framework internally that cascades from the Chief Executive to GMs to staff, and very clear lines of accountability that go along with that.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Stratford.
Oh, yes. So, Councillor Tipinia raised the same issue that I was going to bring up, but I do want to point out the fact that in the, where is it, page, on page 72, a community and customer services manager can do 100% remission of a penalty, but, you know, a te hono manager has had some, you know, had 100% of authority to do remission taken away, and we're now seeking that 2 delegated officers will jointly authorise it. To me, it just doesn't feel consistent that people with Māori freehold land and the staff that look after them aren't being treated the same. That's honestly how I felt looking at this report. And I'm not feeling very comfortable with it.
If I might, through the chair, this is just a matter of getting people with the qualifications and the training to cross-check each other so that all our decisions are completely auditable and safe for the recipient. Our experts in Tohono are first and foremost relationship managers, and they need the backing and support of the technicians in the organisation who have bread and butter policy and finance experience. It's just a matter of getting the right cross-checks and gives us a lot of security and view likewise in every decision that's made. There's certainly no insult to any one party when they write shotgun.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clinton.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of minor things. I was bottom of page 70, signing documents as evidence of court proceedings. I was just a bit surprised that our legal counsel wasn't or isn't in that loop of place, but the other one is top of page 72. I'm just curious to know what a remission of a penalty remission is. 1901, remission and penalty remission.
Right, so can we just have a comment first? George might have a comment about
the issue there is one of evidence. It's not the actual court proceedings documents, it's evidence in court proceedings. The actual court proceedings will probably come through the legal team, but the actual evidence actually will be staff that actually do that, and the manager needs to actually do.
Okay, can someone please answer the 1901?
Through your worship, I think Janice might be able to answer this one.
Thank you, Janice.
It's a typing mistake.
It's a typing mistake.
Second remission word needs to be removed.
Sorry, what's that? Okay, thank you, Councillor Clinton. You've earned your honorarium today. Thank you. Chairman Mike Evans.
Okay, so first question, just a technical question, then a comment. So the CE has been delegated a whole bunch of stuff, and I think the wording is all powers of council except for those things that we cannot delegate. Okay? And so my question is, why do we need to do this, which is I guess a further delegation, which I assumed will be part of the original statement, the original delegation. So that's the question. And so it's down to that. And furthermore, I mean, I noticed we're also delegating down the chain. So whereas normally the CE has the ability to sub-delegate, So can someone just answer that, why it seems to be a double up?
I'm going to ask for a comment, but let me just start by saying that there's very little discretion being exercised in this amendment. This is an administrative tidy up. That legislation, as the executive summary, legislation has changed, names of positions have changed.
Oh, no, I understand.
Reorganisation, so just for your comfort, there's no substantive delegation change going on here.
No. It was still just like this seems to be a double up, right? So you've got a general delegation.
Yep.
Which basically says you're delegated everything.
Yes.
Except for those things the legislation says the council can't.
Yes.
Okay. And so here we've got another document that appears to be delegating some of those powers again. And so my question is why? I mean, I'm not. It's just a question. It's a technical question. It's more than a concern.
It's because, well, first of all, I don't get a complete delegation of everything you can. Elected members do use their discretion and have capped my delegation in infrastructure and other places to their level of comfort. So that judgment is applied by you.
Yeah.
When you did give me a delegation, however, I don't, it makes good sense for me not to be signing things all day. So I set up a system of sub-delegations, which you might be surprised is probably about 30 or 40 pages of sub-delegations, a subset of which you have here. So this is really just about my comfort in sub-delegating to people who I've selected, looked after and trained to be able to carry out the sub-delegations.
Okay, so do you understand my question?
Yes, I understand your question. The issue is that Sean's delegation comes in terms of the LGA.
Okay, yeah.
The East delegations come in terms of the Racing Act, and that's why council needs to actually do the delegation.
Okay, and does that go for sub-delegations as well? So, I mean, I noticed that we're delegating equally to a number of officers, including the CE. So, whereas normally we delegate to the CE, the sub-delegates. So,
but the delegation of the CE rises out of the Local Government Act, and in terms of the delegations that we hear, this is specifically in terms of the Rating Act.
Yes, I know.
There isn't the same delegation authority. That's why we go to council.
Council delegates, we have to nominate individual positions.
Okay, that's the answer one. Okay, thank you, Janice. Right, got it. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Okay, and Rachel, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the interest of being a learning organisation and use a term that we seem to be throwing around a little bit about the bus people understanding reports, I just wanted to be entirely vulnerable as a first-term councillor and put my hand up and say, I don't understand this report. I don't understand what you're asking me to do. This is the first time that I've been through delegations. So I just wanted to highlight that. I will be abstaining on this item and why I'm abstaining. Thank you, Worship.
So primarily, I'll come to you in a minute.
Sorry, I wasn't looking for an explanation. I was just raising it.
I just make the point that actually this is an information report as much as anything, quite honestly. It's just simply that they're just informing us of how the operational arm.
Oh, no,
I accept that as well, but it's for Councillor
Can't raise it.
Mr. Chair, if I could suggest, because we did raise this before, and I was picking up on what Councillor Smith said, and that is the understanding of delegations was going to come to, I don't know, a workshop somewhere. And the thrust of my questions in terms of how does it work out internally, and I think issues that Mike raised also, I think, can be clarified quite quickly. I think it therefore just signal, I think we can signal that we need that to come to the table so council can fully understand it, and I can have assurance that appropriate checks and balances are in place.
Okay.
Assurance, risk and finance.
Assurance, risk and finance, John. Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Good.
Can I
All
just-
right.
Speaking second, but I'm still not comfortable with that final page, but I do appreciate the work that staff do in remissions, and I appreciate that if we don't approve this paper today, that there will be a whole pile of remissions that can't be done. So I am going to support it, but at the follow-up at R, I just want some assurity that the points that Councillor Tepania raised, and I've seen it as well, people have actually with concerns about how long it's taking to get a remission done on their Māori freehold land. So yeah, just want some assurance, and I'd like to hear it from the Te Hono manager. Thank you.
Right. We can do that for the report. All right, thank you, everybody. It's been a good discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Councillor Smith is abstaining. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you very much for that discussion, and I think that's actually a very useful discussion. We'll go to page 77.
I'd like to move that. I'll second it.
I would like to.
We're going to take a move from Councillor Tepanier and then a second from Councillor. And hang on a minute, and then I'll take a third second from Councillor Busich. Councillor Tepanier.
So, Your Worship, I would like a little bit of advice around amending the recommendation to include the recommendations as highlighted in the report. Is that a substituted motion as outlined in standing orders, or?
Can you just refer me to what page you're talking about?
I'm talking about, our recommendation here is simply to note this report.
Note the report, yeah.
However, there are recommendations within this report that I would like to be captured in our motion.
This is for the bit of the Far North to host their own. Well, actually, it's your motion and seconded. If you agree and your seconder agrees, we can actually include that in the motion and then we can have a discussion on it.
Okay.
So if you are suggesting that we add in A, B, and C, is that what you are suggesting?
I am, with a slight change to C, however.
A slight change to
C, to option C.
Option C.
That a financial commitment of 10,000
be made towards hosting the Yimhui should our bid be successful.
Should be successful, okay.
On up to $10,000 should our bid be successful.
Okay.
And I'm happy to discuss the reasons around this.
Yeah, well, just let's get the motion right. So is everybody okay that we note the report and that? So it'll be an and that. Okay, A, B, C, but the alteration to subject to us being successful. Okay, do you wish to speak to it now?
First off, thank you to the support of this council for allowing Councillor Smith and I to attend the Yimhui He Ao Huri changes bid, and it's honestly impossible to capture the value of this hui in a single report, which I did last year and then it came through this year. So when I reflected back on it, it was actually quite hard to try and think, what have I missed out, or what do I need to change, or what else do I want to say in this? I do apologise for some of the mistakes in the formatting of this report, including on the photos. I've omitted the names of committee member Narissa Henry of Maunga Kia Tāmaki Local Board representing Auckland, and Councillor Fisher Wang of Rotorua Lakes Council who represents Zone 2 on our committee, so I just wanted to ensure that I had recognised them. One of my personal standouts from our hui was the pōwhiri at Waipitu Marae. Hutt City Council have worked in partnership with the local hapu Te Atiawa, and after their elections they actually have their swearing in at Waipitu Marae. One of my aspirations would be that we as a council actually get out into our marae. And I know that we have, I counted them all, 120 marae, and that would be impossible to get to in a single triennium. But if we were to look or aspire towards actually us as a council going out to our marae, maybe for our inauguration ceremony every year, and to visit a different one, that was some of the aspiration of mine. In terms of the recommendations in this report, that council support a bid for the Far North District to host the Yimhui in 2021. 2021 will be the fourth ever Yimhui following Selwyn District, Taranaki Region and Hutt City hosting. Hosting the hui is a chance to showcase some of our district, especially so with the fact that we can be proud that we have 2 councillors on the Yim Committee of Local Government New Zealand South, and that 30% of our council are young elected members, which is more than double of the national average. Winning a bid also will bring business into our district, with estimates of our 2020 hui at around $60,000 into the local Hutt City economy, not including the personal spending of attendees. We also have a working idea on our bid, so that would be the story of East and West in the Far North, the birthplace of New Zealand in the Bay of Islands, and the birthplace of Aotearoa in Hokianga, and the huge spiritual significance of Te Rerenga Wairua Cape Reinga, where all of our souls depart to go on to the afterlife. Our council putting in a bid doesn't mean that we will host, but that we will express to the Yemhui subcommittee that we are putting our hands up to host the Yem leaders from around the country. Within the next 2 weeks, process-wise, LGNZ will come to our council seeking expressions of interest in hosting the Yemhui, and a period of around 6 weeks will open for councils to put their bids together, and then the Yemhui committee will choose a winning council based on set criteria. For points 1 and 2, that a Yemhui organisation working party be established, and then Councillor Smith and I are appointed as co-chairs to that. What we learned from the Hutt City bid and consequent hosting was that it required significant collaboration between governance and operations. Councillor Josh Briggs of Hutt City was appointed as the council lead for the Hui in Hutt City and worked as a liaison between Hutt City council staff, local government New Zealand staff and the Yem committee itself. And setting up a working party will enable us to develop our bid and subsequently the hosting of the Hui should the bid be successful. It is suggested within this report that Democracy Services staff be appointed as the organisation leads for this working party because we already have a working rapport with them and already have channels of communication with them. They are also adept at organising and working with governance, which would be key if we were to host 50 odd councillors, community board members and local board members from around the country. And we are also very, Councillor Smith and I are also very sensitive to work streams that are currently being undertaken across our organisation. However, do not see this initial bid as needing overly significant time resourcing. And I honestly believe that our Democracy Services staff would be able to work together with us to be able to meet that. In terms of the recommendation that a financial commitment of $10,000 be made towards hosting the Yemhui should our bid be successful, no matter where this Hui is hosted, a host council will provide financial support to help subsidise the costs for all other councils, which is what Hutt City did for us, for our council last year, and consequently our ratepayers, to the sum of $15,000 is what Hutt City contributed towards their hosting of the Hui. It's a part of being in the local government fund. LGNZ contributes $10,000 towards hosting the Yemhui, and attendees can expect to pay around $750 to attend, as well as transport to get there, which last year added up to more than $35,000. Because of the timing and the logistics, Hutt City ended up contributing $15,000, so more than a regular $10,000, because of COVID, and we still wanted to have a Hui, and they put their hand up to be able to host it. With foresight and more time to put it together and an upper limit of $10,000 as a contribution from the Far North, I believe that we will be able to successfully and financially host the Yemhui, and that this will be value for money when considering the money that we will get put back into our district. I also know that from our CE report, which is another item in this agenda, we have an operational surplus and also have underspent to the sum of tens of thousands of dollars across several budget lines. I know that this, you can't simply take money from somewhere else and put it somewhere else, but that hosting this Hui will take place in October, November this year, so it will fall into our next financial year and can potentially be budgeted for. The report, I think, does speak for itself, so I didn't want to just reiterate everything I've written down, but I think the opportunity for being able to present this to you all, and I do welcome any comments or queries to this report.
Thank you, Councillor Tippinier. Councillor Smith, do you want to comment?
Just quickly, Your Worship, Councillor Tippinier has summed it up. Can I just take the opportunity, however, to remind everybody that rustling of paper and external voices interferes with our live stream, which is feedback we had from our extraordinary council meeting on Tuesday. I want to really echo the opportunity that Councillor Tippinier has raised in terms of highlighting our district to the rest of the country, highlighting the diversity and the challenges, but also really celebrating the opportunities that came to us through the PGF. I think that recognising the position that put us in on behalf of our people to the rest of the country is a really fantastic opportunity. I think Councillor Tippania has summed up the benefit of the hui to our council really well, so I just really wanted to touch on the benefit of the network and what we get out of it, not only as members of the network but members of the committee. So the support from our peers, I think, is something that continuously drives us to really represent at the best of our ability, to represent effectively and to learn from others what is effective, what isn't effective, and how we can channel that energy, which we have been referenced as having high energy several times, into the most effective ways possible. I think that exposure to better practice, continuously searching for better practice across the sector, looking outside of our own backyard at different ways of doing things, really pushes us to be the best representation that we can be. I think in terms of the point that the network has come from, the network was established around about 7 years ago, I believe, to where it is now. We're just in the final stages of our strategic planning processes. So at a network level, that will give our members really concise ways of being the best members that they can be at their own council, but also gives us as a network a really good framework to then stress our messaging through to the likes of National Council at a local government New Zealand level. So the advocacy that comes from the Young Elected Member Network is really invaluable. So those are really the points that I wanted to touch on. I fully support this recommendation. Also happy to take any comments or questions. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Clendon.
Yeah, thank you. I really support this as well. I think it's a great idea. I reference this notion about an opportunity to showcase the far north. It might seem odd in talking about young elected members to reference the Honourable Marion Hobbs, who I'm sure is young at heart, but not in a lot of ways. But she's, among other things, the chair of the board of Heritage New Zealand, and recently in that context came to Northland for just about the first time in her life.
Yes.
She conceded anything north of Auckland was a mystery to her. And she was raving to me about what an extraordinary place Northland is. I can only agree. But I think these young elected members, they're leaders, they're young leaders with a future in local, central government, business, who knows. We can get them up here, many of them won't have been here before, give them a good experience of what Northland is and what it can be, then I think that will pay off in trumps. Who knows what the green team will be. It's a very small investment, 10 grand is not a lot in the scheme of things, and I think the goodwill will be significant, so I think it's a fine.
Thank you, David. And of course, we've already heard of the investment that was put into HUT, and of course, that's without the personal spending. The young people like I usually be quite a bit of personal spending.
Yeah, I certainly support it. Thank you. And I apologise for my young elected members for trying to wind them up. It's all part of the experience. And that's one reason why I support it, is because one of the key things with all young elected members is to get experience. And especially if they, certain people don't even know that Northland exists. So let's get them up here and let us see the diversity that actually exists in the north and the issues. So that's one reason why I'm keen to support it. I just do add though that let's do this formally as the Mayor opened in his address, and that is establishing the working party also defines the delegation. That can happen a bit later. Let's dot their I's and cross the T's. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
John?
Sorry, Councillor Floyd, and then Councillor Ford.
Thank you, John, and Ngā Inui Korua, to both. Your comprehensive report, love the photos, and also bilingual, which is, refreshing to say as part of our agenda. I commend you on your energy that you're supposedly have, and it's true. And 50 people coming to our district, I think also for our youth, our Taita showing them that elected members is a potential career path, I think is a real opportunity for our people as well. And I commend you for your time and your effort as part of young elected members. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Court.
Well, in order to become a not young elected member, one was a younger member. And I'm actually a little concerned, but I don't want to dampen the enthusiasm and passion in the room. I'm a little bit concerned that we are outside of process. An organisation that's quite fixated on process. I'm a little surprised. I feel a little blindsided, to be honest. So I did read the discussion and options report, and in there it talks about a financial investment of up to $2,000. We're going in this to win the bid. So what happens when the bid is won? And Councillor Tiffany has said the initial bid is not overly time-consuming, and I accept that probably the case. But if you win the bid, significant collaboration between government and operations is required, and Hutt City contributed an additional $15,000 for an event that's to occur in 6 months from now. And there's no staff report in here, and I'm not sure the chief executive and the organisation have had the opportunity to turn their mind to whether or not they have the resources and capacity to pull this off in such a short time frame. And so while I genuinely appreciate the opportunity and the enthusiasm and the passion, I would have been a lot more comfortable if this had gone to the chief executive and we had an accompanying report from the organisation that said, well, we can draw the money from here, there, or it's unbudgeted money and we're going to have to wait for it. And do I have the capacity in the organisation to provide the support that is needed alongside our young people and help them pull this off? So just as a matter of process moving forward, without trying to dampen the passion and enthusiasm in the room, I just think that would give me a lot more comfort. I don't disagree with all of the other learning opportunities and those wonderful sentiments I heard, but I would appreciate some comment from the chief executive in the first instance. It would be really embarrassing if we pitched for it and then ran into some roadblocks.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I agree 100%. I've spoken with our young elected members. They made it very clear to me what they're pitching for there, and I got a sense in the room that this is a really cool thing to do. But that is extraordinarily helpful summary from you. I would appreciate if you're inclined to give us direction to quickly put together a supporting bid for this, and to be on notice that if we win, we'll need to support this through to its fruition. But that's all I need from you. The detail of the full resolution here, as was recently amended, is a little prescriptive when we haven't done the homework. And for a start, I wouldn't think $10,000 is enough to do this properly. So I would appreciate your grace in just giving us the go quick, get this together for Councillors Rachel and Moore, and take it to its next step by the most expeditious means. So do we need to pursue the bid and to be prepared for the delivery of the event? Would be very helpful if you're inclined.
Okay, I'll take, thank you for that, Sean, and if you feel that there's a need for us to amend or add into the resolution, please drop me a note so that I can draw it to our attention. I'll take Mike and then Adele and then Kelly and then Dave.
A few years ago, the Community Board Conference came to the Far North, and from what I gathered, it was a resounding success and very valuable for the Far North. So, I mean, if this is going to be anything like it, then it has to happen. But I am concerned about it being out of process. However, over the last 6 months to a year, I've become used to and less frustrated with the amount of out of process work that has gone on around this table. So I'm very comfortable that this piece of work is far less intrusive and far less out of process than the stuff that I've been witnessing over the last year. So out of process, be damned. I mean, it's so small. I think this committee here should just make it happen.
Thank you, Mike. And just make a point, there will be times when we may well do things out of process. Adele,
should be one of them, absolutely.
Adele, and then Kelly, and then Mike.
Thank you, Bishop. Great report, and obviously you've both enjoyed it, and a lot highlighted issues that are there. So it looked like you really enjoyed the 9 bowling club. I bowled there about 5 years ago, representing the farm board, when we came third equal. It's not about that. I'm wondering if this actually supports what you're doing, and I'm wondering if this would fall in the realms of our events funding. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Spafford.
I just want to reflect on the fact that I'm not a young elected member anymore, but I do recall when I was one, there was interest within the young elected members at that time to pitch for a bid up here, and it happened within inside a process, and nothing happened. So I admire the courage of my fellow elected members of picking up on the options that, you know, the recommendations that are within a report, and staff have time to prepare because they've read the report, and bringing them to the top as a recommendation. And I do support this, and I attended the community board one up here out at Waitangi, and that was awesome. Granted, different age group, but the young elected members are the future of governance, and I think that we should support them with this. It's an investment in our council by learning, and I don't see this as being outside of process. I see it as agile bureaucracy, you know, pivoting.
I think that's a swear jar, no? Agile bureaucracy. I want a swear jar, Your Worship.
Is anyone going to point of order? No. So yeah, please everybody support this. We do have some bigger issues in our district, but you know, we can't lose sight of the future, where we want to be. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Collard.
Certainly, it's support from me for this, because despite the obvious returns that have been articulated by everybody else, especially the young folk, this is another event of we do not have enough of people that potentially have not been here before to come and have a look, especially the people of the calibre that are likely to be coming in terms of young leaders. It is critical that we get these people up here to look and see what we do, how we live, and the best place in New Zealand to live. It's critical that we do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll come to you in a minute, Walker, just to write a reply as a mover. And just try to, so it's obvious around this room that there's support. Right? I just want to ensure that we also take into account the need for us to have work with the Chief Executive on putting in the bid and that sort of stuff. Have we got a suggested amendment? Can we just put it up on the board, please, just before we take you, because I'd like you to respond to it, and I haven't seen it yet. That's just been suggested to make sure. So
can I just gently remind everyone too that the talking goes over the top of the speaker? Sometimes the Chief Executive and the Mayor have to talk. Respectfully, sorry, here's your note. So we note the report. Hui, yes,
so the further
and directs the Chief Executive to prepare a bid prepared for the impact of working and delivering the bid and report back to Council. Now, yep, so it'll be what?
That would be B, and I would.
A and B. So the only thing that I'd like on that is that, as we've talked about, if we're going to go down there, and I want the response from Councillor Tepania, we need to actually report back to Council. In fact, this has to be done rapidly, so we need to give some date and promise in it. And I'd much rather that we had, I don't know that we report back to Council, but report back to Councillor Tepania and Smith as a working party.
We work very closely with them.
So I'd much rather that we had report back to the working party comprising of Councillor Tepania and Councillor Smith. But no, I can see a nod. So all I want to do is make sure that we have got the opportunity to work with the chief executive. But I think this is fabulous. I think it's bloody tremendous. So
I'm a bit confused here, John. So we've got an amendment on the table. Is this an amendment to an amendment? And therefore we'll need a mover and a seconder and a vote and a discussion on it rather than just changing it.
So we can do one of two things. Can we just go back to B, please? To the directs the chief executive to prepare a bid. So that would have to be an add-in and report back to the working party rather than to council because we need a date and promise on it.
As the
working party comprised of Councillor Tepanier and Councillor Smith, beg your pardon?
As the original mover, I think that we can catch the Yemhui organisation working party is there to do exactly that. I think that we can remove option or amend the final option around the finances, but that our report, should the bid be successful, that a consequent report around the financial implications and all of that come to us. But in order for this bid to go ahead, it does need to intimately come from Councillor Smith and myself in terms of how it's going to work. And in all honesty, and I apologise around process, because I didn't pick up on the processes around this and write a report.
Okay, so let's just Councillor Teppan here. So we just alter. Let's just assume leave it up there, but just leave it B as it is at the minute because we'll probably take that back out and alter E to if the bid is successful to with the chief executive as what was just suggested.
Can I just comment on that, please,
Yes, please.
Your Worship? As a member of the YEM committee, it has been pointed out by Local Government New Zealand that bids will require an indication of financial commitment from host councils, which is why we put that in there initially.
Okay.
So that will be a requirement of the bid process. I recognise where you're coming from, and that's why we said of up to. But it was important that we secure that commitment from council as a part of the bid process.
So it should potentially say of at least, so that we can put that as a minimum in our bid.
I was going to say something similar, an initial financial commitment of $10,000. The key thing here is that if we're going to do this, we've got to do it well. And the old expression, a hate worth of time. We want to make sure that it's going to be done well. And to limit it to $10,000, I think wouldn't be what council really wants. So my suggestion would be an initial financial commitment.
Point of order, Your Worship. We're inventing resolution on the hop. Can we have an adjournment? Allow Councillor Smith and Tepanier to meet with the Chief Executive, Chief Financial Officer in his office at Democracy Services and come back with a resolution.
There's an amendment on the table. I mean, there is a stated amendment on the table, and if you,
Point of order, thank you, Councillor.
I'm making a point.
I've made a point of order.
Order. Carry on, councillors.
Can we have an adjournment, please, Your Worship?
So that we can give consideration to what the wording should be of the amendment. Yep.
With the moving.
All right. Look, I think we'll have a 10-minute recess. So I will move that we adjourn, and we'll come back. And Councillor Tepanier and Smith, can you please go with the chief executive and work out some wording so that we can make sure that we've picked up all the points.
Can you send the teams back to me?
Sean and Jamie, and I think Rachel is part of it. So, Michael, can you just give us advice on where we've got to with any recommendation?
For this recommendation, I would like to keep A, remove B, keep C.
Just pause for a minute, please.
No.
Keep
B, keep C, and for D, approve an initial financial commitment so that we can include that in the bid itself.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's get it right. Okay, thank you. So you're approving that recommendation. Councillor Smith, are you?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, is there any other discussion, Councillor Ford?
Question, can someone please explain to me what the process is to keep us informed of what the ultimate resourcing might look like? Is there a date and promise? Is there a report back to council? What's the next step?
Could we put a further DE in and say, and that Councillor Smith and Tepania will work,
the working party will report back to council?
Work with the Chief Executive to report back to council. Working party will work with the Chief Executive to report back to council. Actually, could we have that? So we've got the special meeting coming up on the 3rd of March. Could we have that report back to council by the 3rd of March or on the 3rd of March? So that we've got a date and promise? So that we're kept up to date?
Or do you just want regular updates?
Well, regular updates.
Every council.
We have to wait for the initial court submissions to come to our council so we can see what we're working on.
Okay, all right, so we're happy with report back to council? All right, so you're happy with that as mover? Rachel, you're happy with that as second? Okay, we've had sufficient discussion on this. I'm going to put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no.
Abstain, thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Ford. Right. I thought this was going to be an easy meeting. Keep going. Right, where are we up to with the transfer of local purpose reserve to landowners? Have we got?
Staff have provided us some of the factuals for us to circulate to you.
Okay. Right, we will go back to 6.2. There's 2 reports going to be handed around for us to discuss. No, 6.2. 6.1.
Page 31.
Beg your pardon, both times. Beg your pardon. This is the same.
So what is being circulated is evidence of the correspondence with iwi and Haku to gain their support.
On the Vodafone? Right. Okay, so I'm going to give you all, once you've received the time, just have a quick browse through. Is there anything that the staff needs to talk to us about?
So Kane's still on the phone. If there are any other questions that needed to be asked.
Okay, oh, we'll just wait a minute for people to read. So 6.1. Change.
Your Worship, this is a lot to digest. Can we, and I also didn't get to go to the toilet during that agenda that I was in a hurry. Can we have another quick one so I can digest this and go to the toilet?
No, because quite honestly,
I'm going to excuse myself and go to the toilet.
Okay, is there any, take the papers with you to the toilet. Right. Can we, is there any questions that staff have? Kay is on the phone. Kay, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, we can. Thank you. Are there any questions of Kay or staff on these papers? Beg your pardon? Of Belinda, you've got a question?
Well, yeah, I'm still reading it, but thanks, Kay. So we just have verbal approval from Miria Hiata at this stage.
There was an email that gave her approval. There was a few emails that went backwards and forwards. And generally, Council provided, Council's Māori relationship team provided the contact details, and Vodafone have contacted all the contacts we provided them with, and everybody pointed them back to consulting with Mary on behalf of the wider community.
Okay, does that answer your question, Belinda?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I would like to just highlight that Council used to have an MOU with Matauri X. I don't know if it still does, and so this could have, the relationship that we used to have with them, although I do, because I attend the meetings and we talk about rates, this might have been able to
Be part of that.
the process could have gone a bit better.
I'm unaware that there is. I don't know that the MOU. Well, in fact, I'm told all our MOUs have expired. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, and it's just a piece of paper. If we can keep it alive by staying in contact and. But I do know, because I was on the community board when this first came to the board, I'm actually satisfied with where it's got to. We've captured the Te Runanga or Whangaroa's view, which in the Ukapo, the environment arm, they're fine with it. Mere of the marae at Matauri is, she reiterates that the issue is around tenure of the land, which is to be one day resolved in treaty settlement, but that doesn't take away the fact that they still want they do want this, what is it called? The telecommunications there. So that's what this paper is about, so I'm happy to support it.
I can't remember moved and seconded, but it's been moved and seconded. So unless there's any other discussion, I'm going to put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Right, that's carried. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for your patience with that issue. Come to paper 6.7 on page 86. So this is just asking us to change the date, Councillor Court.
Yeah, I'll move.
Okay, second.
It's been moved and seconded. You got any comment, Anne? You've got comments?
Thank you. This agenda item relates to the formal meeting calendar. In the accept the calendar, the related to 2 meetings being held in Kaitaia. Those 2 meetings haven't been specified, and I would hate for the year to go by and we have no meetings in Kaitaia. So could the staff please provide us feedback as to when those 2 meetings or workshops will be held there?
As we've got that noted, we'll come back they will report back to us to give a day in DMP, and our next council meeting they will give us that advice. Thank you. Councillor Stephanie.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question. Is it whenever a formal meeting or committee meeting is going to change, we need to have it come through council like this? I know that workshops often change. Last year was completely different, but is this the process for only for formal meetings? Or just some clarity, because I thought it was, I didn't know we had to do this to change a meeting.
Is there a reason why we actually do? I've got to say this. I am not aware of it, Rachel.
Just in addition to the point that Moko has raised, it does say in the report that the delegation, however, was not given when the calendar was adopted. So in the interest of learning from what Councillor Tiffany has pointed out, could we, through this process, delegate that crucial authority to make minor changes to the formal meeting calendar to avoid this happening again?
I thought that was just what happened. I don't know why it's come before us, quite honestly, but anyway.
No, there was no delegations made on the day. So it was just a statement by you that your meeting shall occur and no delegations or ability to change. So
on the 9th of March.
Yeah, because we don't want to go back to 8 weekly and, you know, less committee meetings.
Our 2020 meeting calendar, formal meeting calendar changed significantly because of the pandemic, but we never actually, it never came to us as a council to discuss or look at the changes, and so I thought it was random that this one did pop up. And now
if I can clarify, we do this as a routine. You asked a really good question about whether it's legally required or not. There might be someone in the room who can help me, but we do each year set schedule. It's very, very difficult because you're such busy people to get something that works. And even if it wasn't a legal requirement, I think it's quite clever to actually get in the room and set the whole year's calendar and block it in for each of you. So we do need this direction from you that the calendar's good, and in regard to this paper, that the amendments we've subsequently had to make are now also good. We would appreciate that direction. So that's why it's in front of you.
Okay. All right, well, I'll put the motion in. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we come to Community Board updates, page 88. And we'll start with Adele Tehiku Community Board. I'll move the recommendation firstly. Do I have a second, please? Thank you, Dave Collard. Right, now I'm going to pass the meeting to each of the community board chairs to give them the opportunity to make any comments that they may wish to make. Adele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to ask the question, can I speak about different things outside these minutes? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. This is your time to tell us what's happening from a community perspective. So long as you keep it under 3 hours, I'll be very happy.
Okay, well, on these particular minutes, there was actually no issues that were brought to the table on these minutes from the outside, from the community. But I would just want to thank you so much for highlighting the Rangitoto Reserve in your mineral and I would like to think that we could be kept in the loop. So there will be a paper that will be brought to council about this, or will it be brought to the community board?
It should come to the community board.
Okay.
I mean, I'd rather that you and Cheryl drove it.
Yes.
If you would. So if it can come through the community board.
Fine, and we can make that recommendation.
You can then discuss the staff appropriately and then make the recommendation to council.
Thank you.
That's the appropriate way to do it.
Yes, that's great. The there's been a contentious issue since July
Yes.
last year, and the gentleman that Boundaries is Land has been asking for this process.
Yeah.
Since
So
July last year.
if you could work with Sean, you and She'll work with Sean and staff to get a paper to your community board so it can progress.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's just one other thing I want to highlight. We met with some of the ratepayers out at yesterday with regards to the location of the toilet that's going to go into the reserve there, and also the location of the dump station. So we're working with that community at the moment, and I have sent an email to Jeanette Egan and Tony Proctor, who were wanting some information about that. So we're working with that community. So yeah, that's what I wanted to highlight with you.
Thank you.
Going forward. So
Madam Chair.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we come to the Mike Edmonds and Kaiko Hogan community?
Okay, John, look, apart from the ongoing issue that I keep bringing up at the odd public meeting about delegations, the only other thing that I haven't, or the only other thing of interest here is that we've set up a committee, a community board committee with some of the locals, just to receive information on the spraying of glyphosate in the area. So spraying of Roundup in the area.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so they want some kind of assurance that they'll be kept in the loop. So we've set up a committee, and we'll continue to liaise with the CE on what's happening and what the future of it is. The chief executive came to our meeting and said there was a piece of work looking at alternatives. So this committee will just be receiving that information. So that's really the only interesting thing out of the ordinary thing that we've done recently.
Okay, thank you. I'll take Councillor Smith and Councillor Stratford.
Thank you for that, Mike. That was the point I wanted to ask you a question. Will you be submitting to Council LTP on that? That's a message that we're hearing from a lot of our communities. A lot of elected members around the table have that appetite to see a recommendation come from that committee.
Okay, so what we'll be doing is we'll be delegating all the powers of the committee board in this respect to the committee. So anything that the community board could do, including, I guess, make an LTP submission in that respect, but that'll be up to the committee. But the main thing here is as we explained the other day to them, this year's a done deal. They're spraying, we can work without it, there's no doubt about that. But they say they've been on it for about a decade, and I'm saying, well, we should be able to do something in a decade. So if we bring it in-house into the community board, maybe we can keep it alive and get some kind of movement, either a movement or a statement saying it can't be done, but at least some information, right? And then so that's their job, and hopefully they will do their job. But like I say, we put it into a community board committee just to keep it alive, basically.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stratford, and Councillor Clement, and Councillor Busich.
Kia ora, Mike, thank you. And Councillor Smith brought up this same thing, but I am just wondering, is that model something that can be joined in on by other communities? Is there a sharing of information? The CE is...
Look, we haven't discussed that, and this committee was solely for the Hokianga.
Yeah.
However, I see your point. And in fact, interestingly enough, the Local Government Act doesn't, or actually, the Local Government Act allows us to form joint committees with our community boards. So, there's nothing wrong with that being, and that might be a great way of going. So, yeah, look, if the community boards want to get in on it, then I'd be really open to that, because it would bring the whole thing, make it bigger and bring it to the forefront. But thank you.
Thanks.
So, yeah, absolutely. Can you bring that up with the community board, and we'll start that process.
If you could, Mike, if you could chat with Adele and Belinda, please, between the three of you, because it's a community board thing, that would be very helpful. And there's no hurry. We'll expect your report back next meeting. Thank you. No, it's not. I'm only joking. But thank you if you take it up with him. And David?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the record, to note that there is some developments underway of a open public space / reserves policy being done by council. We hope to have it more advanced by now through the strategy committee, but obviously with some of the issues that popped up and the workload on staff, that hasn't progressed, but it is underway, so there's an opportunity there for consideration of our use of glyphosate in our reserves and public areas, which personally I think that we could significantly reduce in terms of public health and indeed costs and public awareness of the dangers of glyphosate. So there is an opportunity there, as I say, for some input into a council which other people would grasp.
Thank you for those comments, and can I just make the point then, we don't want working in silos, so would you mind liaising with Mike to make sure that we're synchronising? The last thing we need is one group over here doing something and a policy decision being taken.
In our particular case, it's just to receive information at this point in time.
Sure.
But we're not really working in a silo, but we'd be happy to help, happy to be part of anything else.
I think, yes, thank you, if you would, I think it's important. Councillor Usage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the chair needs to be commended on taking this action for 10 years that people have been making this request formally by forming this committee. Now they can sit on that committee and be involved in that decision making. So that's and by the way, it made them very happy. So I like what so others can potentially join, as Mike pointed out. But just to show you how different this is the second time in the history of community boards in New Zealand that a committee was set up, isn't it right?
Not quite sure. You do better than I. I've not known.
I know the first time was in the history of New Zealand. So,
well, it's not something that I've heard of before, and in fact, the Remuneration Authority, something like 6 years ago, struggled to come to grips with the idea of a community board committee. So obviously they'd never heard of it before that either.
So it really gets them involved in the local decision making and the issue that's really supporting. So it's bringing the local back to local government back to something like the community. So I think it's great.
Thank you, Councillor Busich. And again, thank you, Mike, for you and the community board taking the lead. Have you finished all you need to report? I've got one question. I have toilets. I just flagged them you. I've copied you into emails with Mr. Aiken, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I've suggested that you and he liaise with you and John Mobile. Is there any update on that? The last email I had from him was there was some rock or something outside the toilets that was inappropriate and they wanted to move it. So I don't know where you're up to, but it's an item that's been going that we need to make sure at community board level.
Look, the manager of infrastructure wrote to me saying there was no process. Then I think he was informed by his staff that there was a process, so he corrected himself. Thank you. So apparently there is a process for doing all this stuff.
Right.
And I expect that the community will be engaged with the process. And if the process is not good enough, then we'll do something about that.
I raise it only, could you please comment on it in your next minute so that we don't lose sight of it, because they might, what's happening, just so you know, the children of Okaihau are looking to do a project for their community, and one of it's to upgrade the toilets, which is tremendous, and the council should be supporting it, and that's why Mike and John Moku are, giving it support, because it's helping our young people get involved in community things. So if we could just keep that followed up, Mike, that'd be great if you would. Thank you. Thank you for your report. Can we come, if that's all, can we come to you, Bill?
Thank you, Richard. Yes, I had a few things actually. On page 101 there, excuse me, I've always been requesting a report, quite urgently really, on the existing contracts to give effect to levels of service in the Vale and Whangarai Ward. But I think each community board could benefit from this. If we're serious about community boards and our communities having input into localism, we need to actually capture the renewal of those contracts, and they all come up at different lengths, and they all come up at different times of the year. And when we have issues, often the contract has already just been relet. There does seem to be quite a few ongoing issues with level of service and probably also follow up on the performance-related contracts. We used to get at the community board staff used to come along and discuss the performance levels, and we had input into everything from the levels of our lawn mowing to cleaning and weeding rubbish tins or whatever. That's not currently happening. So I think if we're serious about making this, we really need to start looking closely at those contracts. So that's something that I would ask on behalf of the board that report be brought forward quite quickly so we don't miss capturing some of those contracts that are coming up for renewal. Likewise, across the page on page 102, we're starting to have ongoing issues with reserves in some of our community facilities in particular. This was highlighted with the Bay Sport issue of wanting money and being unsuccessful through the LTP process, being told they were going to be unsuccessful, coming to the board and the pressure on the board with the number of youth and the growth of the sporting facilities. And we felt that there should be some urgency around a framework being developed because the models are all different, and this model in particular on this facility is the board saw that as very flawed. Whereby council owns the land and they own the buildings and they're coming to us at community group level for funding. So we don't have any two facilities the same, and we don't have any framework and guidelines really as to when council turns them away coming to board for funding. So we really like that to be moved forward quite quickly with strategy and policy committee to develop as a framework if possible, please. I guess the contract issue that I was referring to earlier, that can probably be highlighted by some RFSs I had to do the other day in relation to the mine contracts on the village green, the high winds and the poplar trees have dropped lots of big branches. The mine contractors literally threw them around the Williams house and garden, threw them over the car park area, down the street, wherever they could, so that they could mow the lawns. I mean, these sorts of things, if done at a local level, can be mitigated quite quickly. They don't go out in the green waste, the branches are too big, so now we have to deal with RFS and landscaping. So that's just an example of how better we can improve things. Likewise, the Russell Town Hall flooding happened on Valentine's Day morning, and everyone was obviously pretty loved up because I could not get hold of a soul. Now, I think the problem I have there is, as community board chairs, I don't have any contact details, any personal cell phone numbers or any staff numbers to ring. And so I had real issues with trying to get through to the right person. Glenn came to my rescue in the end after I rang your worship. But that's another classic example of something that could have been mitigated really quickly and easily had I not had to spend an hour and a half on the phone trying to get through to somebody. So the contractors couldn't get hold of their contractors, and it was just something. So the whole committee were there dealing with their side of it, but there was the council toilets and the facilities, the OSHA shows, the ending of the fire station tank overnight. Had there been a fire that day in Russell, that could have been catastrophic. So, I just would like to see some. I don't expect everyone to give their phone numbers out to everybody, but really, as a point of contact, if the chairs did have some contacts for the facilities other than known people. And finally, the redwood trees in Kirikiri. The previous community boards, some of you will recall the history of these trees. It's been ongoing with the Kirikiri Retirement Village to remove the trees and the OSHA issues there, with numerous reports and through several community boards. The issue, the previous community board requested annual reports of the state of the trees, which actually surprisingly had been done. One was done last September, but it wasn't brought through to the community board. So now we have another issue with the trees, and David Cleveland and myself are meeting with the village over it. The issue I have there is that's great, the report was done, but the report wasn't sent through to the community board, so we couldn't follow up and we weren't in the know, and it was a new board. So it's again another lack of flow on handover process in relation to those reserves and those trees, which we do need to keep a handle on for future. So,
thank you, Belinda. I know Sean's taken note of that, and can I just thank David and Belinda for the work that you're both doing on that issue for us, for Hillary and the retirement village, because I know that all of us who are local in that sense are aware of the concern that the redwood trees cause. And of course, there's also within the community two sides to both, two views on the whole thing. But thank you. Anything else, Belinda? All right, well, thank the three of you for your presentation. That's very helpful. So the recommendation has been moved and seconded. So I'll put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no, carried. Thank you. Can we come to the 7.2, which I'll move, page 104. Do I have a second, please? And just note that the resolution, the legislation was passed last night in Parliament under it. It's been seconded by Councillor Tepania. Any questions for this lead? Sorry, Councillor Floyd.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just from reading the report, it was really informative, and I noticed as well there was a fact sheet that identified some different scenarios. I was wondering, when we do our consultation, if the public are going to be made aware about how the voting for different wards may change with the different scenarios. For example, if there are general seats for Māori wards, then that may mean that all the Māori ward seats may be all from the Eastern Ward, or it may mean that the general voting may be all at large, or that you can only go for one person if the Māori wards are per ward, instead of 3 people. So I just wanted to ask the staff to clarify whether the representation consultation, will we be providing scenarios?
Yep. So yes, Felicity, yes, and of course, I mean, as you know, we're not just talking about Maori wards, but we're talking about standing committees and having representations on committees with voting rights, all that sort of stuff. So it's a far wider discussion, but I just make the point of Maori wards, they can, the 3 could, if we had to stick with 9, 3 would be Maori wards, which would be elected at large, could be across the district, as opposed to having 3 separate wards, those sorts of things. So there's lots of options for us to discuss as well. Carolyn, you want to add something?
Oh no, I just want to, I have one question as well.
Sure. Thank you, through the chair. You're absolutely correct. If we were to revisit the decision to adopt Māori wards, that would be wrapped into the representation review, where the entire structure and the basis for election will be discussed with an initial proposal going out. I don't know if you recall, we've had a few workshops on this, so it's all getting a little bit blurred. And then we will go out to formal consultation with an initial proposal, which will outline to our public what actually that model looks like, what we're consulting on. So yes, they will get the broad awareness that if we were to revisit the decision and adopt Māori wards, there will be 3 seats if we retain the status quo outlined by the Mayor, or if we increase our numbers, then those numbers would increase. But in terms of where they would sit, whether they are at large or within wards, is yet to be determined by the council as part of the representation review.
Yeah. Yes, so it'll be discussed.
And then one other question, in the executive summary, the second paragraph there, it states that amendment bill basically it annuls the binding poll, which is correct. However, in that second paragraph there, it doesn't state whether the existing council motion of voting for no Māori would stand, or if we are to re-vote on that.
It does, and we are unless we decide to, and at the moment it stands.
Is that correct from the staff as well?
Yeah.
I'm obviously in the direction on whether you're going to revisit the alternative decision, but that's up to elected members.
At the moment it stands. Okay, any other questions on Councillor Tiffany?
Sure, just for, thank you, Mayor Carter. Just for members of the public who are watching, we had an extraordinary council meeting which will give a little bit of light in this discussion in terms of what the next steps for our council are in this space. So I would encourage those who are wondering, well, what's going on, that you can actually watch back that on our Far North District Council YouTube page to see that we are not going to a non-binding poll of our electors before the 21st of May, that the amendment bill allows us to reconsider whether or not we want Māori wards before the 21st of May, and that this will form a part of our consultation in this space, and that there will be informal consultation to gauge where our district is at too. So when you see that, make sure you get involved in it. And in our recent consultation or engagement with the public, we've actually been getting really good hits back, right? Like in the thousands in terms of people engaging over our digital strategy. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what else, but it seems like we're on the up in terms of getting our community feedback back. So keep an eye out for that. I am looking forward to seeing what our community says, and I would like us to revisit our decision, or if not, to look at revoking it to allow, so we're not locked in for 2 election cycles. So that will all form a part of the discussion, but if anyone is confused in the space, we have already had a meeting here, and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Kepineer, because it is important that people understand that we are going to want to try to communicate not just on the issue of Murray Wards, but on representation and communication and the stuff that John Usage has been talking about, the stuff that Felicity raises, all that stuff which I mentioned on Tuesday. Right, if they're interested, obviously they can email us or ring us, but they can also have a look at that meeting. So thank you for doing it. That's great. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I will put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no carried. Now, just before we come to the Chief Executive's report, Councillor Radich raised an issue about the Carry Dam earlier, and I'm just going to ask Councillor Mr. Swanholm just to give us a comment on where we're up, please, with the Carry Dam, so that we're all informed. If you can, George, in regard to the issue of the Awanui River and so on. Thank you.
So the current status of the Carry Dam is that the current Carry Dam remains part of the plateau reticulation system at present. The reason for that, the reason why no steps are taken at this stage to actually close the dam down or to decommission it in any way, is because for our resource consent, in order to be able to take water below our current resource consent limits from the Awanui River, which is what we do at the moment, we need to show that we actually tried other resources and we can't take it from that resource. If we close the Carry Dam, then we haven't got the ability to explain why we haven't got it. So once the Sweetwater project that we're busy doing at the moment is complete and that reticulation system is on board, then we have the alternative system as well. And at that point, we'll be able to close decommissioning the Carry Dam. But until such time, we can't do that because it actually means that the resource consent, which is given to us by the regional council, they require us to actually have that ability to be able to explain why we can't take from our alternative source. And if there isn't an alternative source, then they fall short.
Thank you, George. That's a helpful explanation. Thank you. Yeah, that's all we need. Thank you very much. Can we come to the report 7.3 on page 109, Chief Executive's report, and I will move. Thank you, Councillor Gorsuch. Can't even find it really. Oh, 109, right. I'll move. It's been seconded by Councillor Gorsuch. The floor is open. Sean, do you wish to comment first, or do you want to take the
If I could just quickly. So this is the last 2 months of the calendar year, the November-December report. I just note at the outset that in discussion with the Executive Review Committee and other interested parties that we produced more comprehensive IAMS reporting and now district services reporting, which are key output groups. And that gives us an opportunity to reduce the size of the CEO's report so that it draws to the attention of governance what the key points of note might be. So there'll be a change in format coming up, and you won't have another 60 or 70 page executive report to read. But let's just keep working together on getting that fit for purpose from a governance point of view. In the meantime, this report I find comprehensive. It was a difficult calendar year, you remember, with floods and droughts and 2 COVIDs and lots of frantic bidding for central government funding to offset some of our issues. So we got through that intact, in fact, all intact in a really pleasing way. For the period, the most significant event, I think, was that 3.5 years of council improvement programs. We've been transforming council through 34 projects, which culminated in the first week of November with a group that we invited in to assess us against other councils. For those listening externally, that's a benchmarking organisation for the local government sector and how each council is performing. So they came in and assessed us in the first week of November, and there was a really unified effort from elected members and staff alike to put our best foot forward on just where we got to in terms of the health of the organisation, and we'll wait for a March result on that. In the meantime, as I said to ERC this morning, I'm not particularly worried or even interested about the final council mark result, and the reason I say that nonchalantly is because we know we're going to be an A-grade council on this trajectory. We are interested in how far along that journey we've travelled so far, but there's momentum here that's excellent, and we're focusing now on a new phase. So the reporting period marked the end of internal transformation, what we've been calling down and in, looking at our own culture and systems and processes. And we've kicked off what we're colloquially calling up and out now, which is to get traction on the street, which will be pleasing to all of you, I hope. So the discussion there is around getting higher elected member satisfaction, getting higher stakeholder satisfaction, getting quicker constituent responses to everything they need. And we think now the organisation's armed and much better placed to start delivering on that. But the planning is active, and that's now started in earnest. Of other note, your voice survey was run. It's the third year running. We've asked our staff how they're faring, whether they're being well led, well trained, whether they're healthy and safe, whether they like working here. And our results were an improvement in 12 out of 13 areas. To go on top of the 13 out of 13 area improvement from the year before, so we're pleased with that. And as of right now, the staff are being visited by SLT on the outcome of that results. We were up in Kaitaia yesterday with a couple of audiences just getting face-to-face feedback on how that's working. Remote working policy, you'll all be intimate with that. That's been very brave from our council, and what happened in the reporting period was that we went to a survey of our troops to see whether we had this right. Basically, our council now has the ability to work from home on a semi-permanent basis. It's a mixed model as it's turned out, where each individual spends about 2.5 days a week in at work and the rest at home. We've worked that up in a very detailed and very deliberate way over the last year, and it's going to, it preserves or in cases improves our outputs, a big reduction in overheads, and it makes a difference to other factors like our global footprint. 1.7 million kilometres of worker commuting no longer happens, which makes a difference to our green profile, for example. So that's very exciting. With the 2nd of February this year, we went to our final solution on how this looks, and it seems to be working well so far. But there's more to come as we continue our communication with elected members on that. Otherwise, just in terms of, there's a comprehensive executive summary there and plenty of detail in the report, which I'm sure we're going to ask questions about, but I do also note that we managed to knock off the draft of the LTP in the period, and it was after just over 60 workshops, 60 workshops during the year on what you wanted to do with the long-term plan, and the final 2100 draft also hit the desk. And we, amongst our successes, got 2 awards from ALGAM, which is the Association of Local Government Information Managers, who recognised this council for the way they had managed the disruptions of COVID during the year. So that's national level awards, and it's always good to get that recognition just so that we can see that we are playing with the big boys and girls on the podiums of local government. So my SLT and I would be more than happy to take any questions you've got on this report.
Thank you. Councillor Busic.
I thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on the council mark, first comment, this is one thing that I'm deep in my heart and certainly pushing for the early adoption in 2016. But the real, look, I agree with Sean, it's not so much it's not a pass, or fail that the mark is. What the real value is that you actually have an independent professional body making a consistent assessment across all councils. So it gives us clear feedback on where we fit in that area, but also it identifies areas that we need improvement in. And it's done in a depth, quite detailed depths. What that equips us as elected members with is key areas that we can focus on. And if we wish to be, which I 100% agree, an A-grade council, for the sake of all of our ratepayers, and live the overall performance in the area of governance, finance, and service delivery and communication, and then go there as a goal, that's fantastic. We need this. We can't get there without those assessments being done, that measurement being made, and actually being reported on. That focus of the mind. So, look, whatever the results are, I'd say great. It's a step in our journey to commit to that end game, which could take a year or two. I think it's great aspiration. So I'm really keen to see that there, Sean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clendon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you to the Chief Exec for the report. It's always thorough and interesting. I just want to make a couple of comments about the section on climate change on starting page 128. Reference to the establishment of a joint committee on climate change adaptation, which will include representatives from the 4 councils in the north. I'm our FNDC's designated representative on that committee. Unfortunately, it hasn't yet met, and it's not due to meet until the middle of April, which has been an issue of real frustration to me. And I can mention colleagues, governance colleagues from other councils have expressed their concern. We have with no disrespect to the staff who have done a lot of work and are developing the strategy and potential actions, no doubt. We've got no view of that, and I do think that it's strategically not a good idea that the governance body is going to come in when the work is quite well developed. At some point, the strategy is going to need resourcing, which is a political decision, and I just think it's actually going to, in the long run, slow the whole process down, that the governance representatives have not been part of the development of the work to date. As I say, I'm just in part voicing my own frustration, but truthfully, because I have been asked by a number of people who know that I've got this responsibility, what are you doing? Where are we at? What's happening? Then I can't give them an answer because we simply don't have any view of it. So it is frustrating, and I think technically it's the wrong approach not to have governance engagement at an early stage. Not overstating our technical ability or knowledge, but the fact that the staff have a particular role and expertise, and elected members have a role and expertise, and that's missing to date from this. So I do look forward with bated breath to April the 12th when we can finally start engaging with the work, and hopefully be able to report back a bit on what occurs from that date on.
Good point. Thank you.
One of the things that was discussed this morning, actually, funny enough, was we've got so much on the agenda that actually we as governance need to sit and say, here's the top priorities of our 8 or whatever. And then if the chief executive hasn't got sufficient resources, he needs to come and tell us. And that sort of thing falls right under that category. For your comments. Councillor Tepania and then Councillor Smith.
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor Carter. I just had a couple of comments and maybe a question or two. Actually 5 to be exact, so a minute per each. Number 1, on page 116, and this is just actually this is more of a comment. We have 354.89 staff members in our organisation, and there are a number of them plus at least one elected member who are taking part in the Aotearoa Bike Challenge 2021, which is a challenge to encourage people to get on bikes for the month. We are actually coming second in Northland, beating Whangarei District Council and Kaipara District Council, but tailing Northern Regional Council in terms of the number of Ks that our staff and at least one elected member have been clocking up. So I just want to shout out to our staff. We're coming 40th in New Zealand for government and public sector entities with up to 500 employees. Number one is Christchurch City. I know that their city is extremely flat and bikeable, so number two, on page 125, there is kōrero there around a program called Connected, a non-profit organisation called Connected Nation, who will be leading Connected Northland to deliver digital works, a flexible digital training and job placement program to educate and mentor participants to upskill and find jobs. I think that is fabulous. I guess when I read that it is a US-based non-profit organisation, however, I just want to make sure that we have sway in there to ensure that there are cultural competency elements in these programs as we're upskilling people to get into jobs. So that is, I don't know, that's just something I picked up because it says it's a US-based non-profit organisation, and I thought, oh, are we outsourcing? Is this going to be like our wonderful council upskill videos where this lovely lady with an American accent talks about upskills me for my role as a governor? I just want to make sure that it does have that beautiful Northland flavour to it, because you can't just pick up something from somewhere else and plonk it down here and expect that it will work. That will just be something I want to pick up there. Number three, for libraries on page 133. I see there that it is a lower priority, but a regional approach to libraries. I think that is great, that I would like to continue to look into that. We know that here in the far north, we have to go to Whangarei. It's our principal city for this region. We go there for shopping, we go there for what else have you. Imagine if we could also drop our books off while you're doing things in town and it still is all a part of the same. Let's look into that. Very quickly, number four, the finances. I don't know, I just thought that the graphics on my iPad look like it's from a Windows 98 program. I don't know if the font needs to be updated on that. It is a little bit harder to read for me. And number five, on page 143, we have registered nearly 8,000 dogs. That's really great because this time last year it was actually only 7,869 registered dogs. In this report last year though, it also picked up that there were still 3,270 dogs on record but weren't registered. If we have numbers similar to that this time around, that could bring an income of around $196,200 to this organisation. I know that our animal management staff are looking to catch up with 80% by the end of February, 100% by the end of March. I just wanted to bring that up, and I'll follow these up with CE office email.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep it brief. So 3 points, page 117, I note that there's a continuous decrease in the overall CSI customer satisfaction index for closed requests for service. So I'd really appreciate some commentary on what we are doing to improve that. Page 128, we talk about the refining the Northland Transport Alliance and more specifically a formal contract between the NTA and councils. This is great news. We have had numerous issues recently, especially with the NTA and the outward facing side of that, as well as the relationship into our organisation. So my question is, what are the governance touch points in the development of this contract and what oversight will we have? My last question was page 141, operational financial performance report, taking on board Councillor Tiffany's comments about the font. I note the forecasted overspend on contract and professional fees was quite significant, so I was just wanting some commentary on that. Happy to take that now or take it offline through the CE office. Thank you.
They're big questions, and looking forward to getting back to the session. Councillor, are you happy with that?
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. Oh, Councillor Floyd.
Thank you. Sorry, I had three. So page 130, the PGF, I just note there that it talks about a huge amount of shovel-ready funding, 159, that's significant for our district, But that money doesn't exist unless we do the doing, unless we actually deliver it and spend the money within an allocated timeframe. Well, that's as governance, I think, what we need to ensure that we are being reported on correctly and be given the risk if we aren't actually on track for that. That's why this morning I raised about procurement, and if this is a significant risk, particularly for our low value, low risk procurement processes, and if our procurement panel was working with the intent that it was set up with staff. It'll be 1 year in July that was announced that we were given this funding. In July, will we be given a report on these projects and any risks that as governance we need to be aware of for that delivery, and if we're on track. That's the first thing.
Right, we can get you that report because there is one. Yeah.
Great. So the other one is on page 139, Project Darwin. This was raised in our infrastructure committee and also our chair of strategy. Councillor Smith has raised this as a significant risk. We plan to do the LTP amendment relating to where we have the information from Project Darwin and development contributions. If we don't meet this time frame, we don't know our latent capacity, then we can't have development contributions as well. We can't plan for growth correctly. We need to know as governance that this is all on track to meet those milestones with the timeframes that we're within. Because if we are told too close to the time, we will not have the time to react as governance to ensure that that's resourced correctly. We need to know these risks in advance. My last one was about the ETA. I totally agree, and in particular, the ETA feeding into our development processes. And if the NTA are going to give comments about new roads or new transport issues, if the NTA is resourced sufficiently to ensure that those timeframes are reasonable instead of extending resource consent timeframes under Section 37, for example. That would ensure that we don't have any hold-ups, particularly the housing shortage.
Thank you very much, Councillor Speaker.
Thank you. In the CE report, there is a section on the animal shelters, and I just want to let everybody know that I have asked for an update on a timeline for the work on the Malka site, either at the Infrastructure Network Committee or Regulatory Committee. My second point, I just want to acknowledge the accessibility strategy, which staff have fed into, but also members of the public were invited to engage in that. There was a survey, and we had an update on that work at our at GAG, or Disability Action Group, and they're really excited because council had been working on a policy internally with GAG, but working on it regionally is much better, and that was something that came out of the CE forum. Thank you very much. And also just want to give snaps to the comms team and the communication that they've done on water conservation. That's really proactive, and I'd like to see it continue because water is life, and doesn't matter whether we're in a drought or it's raining, we've always got to conserve water. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, well, thank you, folks. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no, carried. Right, we're at the end of the open meeting, and I intend, because there's only a couple of items, to go into committee and deal with those, and then we can have lunch at the close of that. So I will move to go into committee. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Deputy, Councillor Foy. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. is closed. Thank you all very much for your attendance and your participation. It's had one or two challenges, but the good thing is we're all working together. Oh, yeah, you play in Carrick here. Who can do that for me? Listen. Kelly? Thank you, Kelly. Amen. Thank you all very much for your participation. Drive home carefully, safely.
But have
Thank you.
lunch and some cake.